Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining me. I know it's so early for some of you, so thank you so much for stopping in. I wanted to get some thick white out to get started. Is this it? Basic. Oh, there it is. Meanwhile, I had the right stuff. I thought I had it in the wrong area. So, I thank you so much for joining me. I know I have not been live a lot, and I will explain what has been going on. First of all, the last week of school has kicked my butt here, there, and everywhere. But also, we rescued a puppy. So Christian is super duper duper excited about that. He is not even 5 months old. He is from a rescue that we worked with here in Maryland. Donna, you got up early for me. Oh my goodness, I am so, I don't want to say impressed because that sounds a little snarky, but thank you for getting up early, everybody that did. That makes me so happy. I'm going to trim down these couple pieces of paper while we're waiting because I have a couple things I thought would be kind of fun. So anyway, we rescued this little puppy. His name is Jack. He is a lab German Shepherd mix. He is really, really cute. He'll be 5 months old on the 20th of this month. He follows me around like I'm his mother, which is adorable, but you know, I already have one person that follows me around like that. So one extra one is a little extra. But anyway, he's really cute. School ended. I finished up my first year ever as being a teacher's aide, which was definitely challenging, but also really, really fun. So it was just, this week was super, super busy and a little overwhelming because now Christian is finished with first grade, which is just, I can't even believe. It's mind-blowing, but you know, I guess that's what happens when you have kids and they grow up, right? Everybody knows that. So thank you so much for bearing with me. I will probably try to go live sometimes maybe in the mornings. It could just be willy-nilly. I also thought that if there's a lot of people that can't watch live, I could also do videos, but I kind of like it because sometimes we can get people participating. So thank you everyone who joined me. I know a lot of people are up super early, so I hope you have your coffee. I have had several cups. I've been up since 5, if that makes anybody feel any better, because the dog is if I thought Christian was an early riser, the dog is a super early riser. But to show you what we're going to do today, so this is the Bloom Where You're Planted. Basically, I did order the suite, so you guys know that I've worked with the paper a little bit, but I saw this technique. Someone actually did something else with it, with using this little lattice, which this comes as part of the bundle. It's a paper lattice, so it's not super durable, but I thought of a really cool idea that we might be able to do with this, so I'm going to try that. But this is, in case you missed it, or if you're new, so this is the suite. So if you buy the suite, you get one of everything in here. So you get the stamp set, the die, the 12 by 12 paper, and the paper lattice. So you can see there's lots of examples. This one is really cool. I'm gonna have to do something with this because I like this. And just as a side note, I ended up making teacher thank you cards. So I should have taken a picture, but I didn't. But I made 4 because I also made 2 for the other first grade class. The room mom asked me to. I'm good friends with her. So she said, would you do that? So I made 4, and I actually used the paper here. And I'll show you here really quickly what I did, as you can see it. Basically, I made a very simple card. I used this mask, and you saw what the card that I made the week prior. Actually, somebody needed a thank you card, so I gave that to them. But what I did was I used this mask, and I used soft succulent and evening evergreen, and I kind of did like an ombre fade. So I started light, then went dark, then went light again. And maybe I'll do a video on that one separately. But I use those with the blending brushes, and then I cut, and I'll show you because you can see some pieces here. So I used a couple of these I just did as is, but if I needed a pot, I cut the pot out. But what I actually did was I cut this whole piece out. I just kind of fussy cut it. I used this one, this one, this one, and then for another one where I was kind of running out of pieces, I actually used these pieces here, and I did this one as well, and then I cut the pot bases out with the dies. And for one of them, I did a stitched oval. For the other one, I actually used, and I can't think of the name of it right now, the one that goes with In Good Taste, the DSP. I can't think of what that is right now. But anyway, I used that as a little background piece, and it was a super simple card. I mean, it had a lot of impact, but very simple. So I've almost gone through my DSP sample, so that's good because I did cut one for myself. So this is the paper. In case you missed it, it's really very natural and pretty. And I actually saw a really cool card made with this, with a thank you with the plants. So the nice part about the plants is you have these that you can cut out if you want. Maybe you're not a fussy cutter, which is okay, but you can use the dies as well. So the other part that I'm going to share with you today is using the lattice. And you can see they've used the lattice in lots of different ways. So here, this is the lattice, but they just trimmed it. So I'm going to show you my kind of idea to use with this, which will be the second card that we're going to make. Also, it has these great dies, and I'm going to show you these as well. So I finally broke down because it was what I was doing was I was taking little scraps of magnetic pieces that I had. So for example, if I got like a magnet sheet, what I did was I was sticking them here, but they kept falling off. So I finally broke down, and I got these from Stampin' Storage. If you are interested, I do have a shopping link that's on my website, but they have a nice backing and they're pretty thick. And the cool part is you could do one of two things. So they have these sleeves. So I showed you I got that small box that's right off screen here that I will put them in. But if you get the 5x7 cards, you can actually put them in here as well. And then you have, now granted that does make it a little bit heavier, but it's nice because they all stay in one spot. So that's another idea if that's something you're interested. They do sell 6x7 or 5x7 magnet cards, and then the pockets are 6x7. So it kind of just depends on how big you want it to be. So I thought I would share that with you today. I'm just going to move these off. And I believe you get 10. Yeah, you get 10 of the magnet cards. So they're really nice. And then they also do give you these little labels. So if you were maybe a person who was going to not keep yours, you could always write on them in pencil the name of the die and then stick it, and then you could erase it if you decided to sell it or move on. But I really like this set. I typically only buy stamps that I know I'm going to use and love and keep for a while, because I get too attached to stuff and then I can't get rid of it, which is why I don't usually buy something if it's not really my style. So anyway, in the spirit of what we did, or what I did, I should say, the other day with this mask, we're actually going to use this lattice as a mask. And again, I did see this as someone else's idea, which I thought was really cool. But then I thought maybe since we're going to kind of change this around, we could do something different with it afterwards. So stick with me. We're going to make, hopefully, at least 2 cards. So I did trim this down to 4 by 5 1/4. We might go a little bit smaller, but I guess just kind of depends on where we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take just some purple tape, and I'm just going to use this scrap. I did some, for the second card that I did, I actually did some little scrap pieces of white that I had really thin, and I colored them with the Stampin' Blends, and then I layered it behind just to make it so it was like a little bit different. Now, you could totally go ahead with masking this depending on what you want to do, because it is going to be a little bit smaller. So if you have this little overlap, but what I'm going to do is just count on the fact that hopefully I can keep myself in check and I won't go too far over the edge. So I'm going to just very lightly tape this down on 2 corners. Okay. And then instead, because I've done a lot with the green, I was thinking maybe I could do something a little bit different. So I'm going to try cinnamon cider. And I do find that this is, for me anyway, not an easy color to use because it's kind of almost a little too dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be super light with it. So I'm going to grab one of my blending brushes. And speaking of, one other thing I want to tell you, I did use this with the greens when I did those cards. I went light to dark, and it was really, really saturated. And even though I cleaned it off, it's still just a little bit is coming off, but I actually ran this underwater because I rinsed a lot of it out. So I am probably going to try to get more of these so I can have them per color. So this one, even though it's kind of like an orangey, which it actually is dry, I'll use this for brown as well. So to start, I'm going to just go on this, and this is a pretty dark color, as you can see, so I'm trying to be a little bit light-handed. So I'm just going to start in the center and I'm trying not to go too far out of the border of this if I can help it. I can't remember who it was that shared this card. I watch a lot of card videos when I'm falling asleep at night, just because I like cards and I don't get to watch stuff. Well, I couldn't while I was in school anyway, watch as many videos as I used to. So it doesn't have to be that it's fully in the rectangle. We're just kind of going for something. And I'll make a little bit darker spot in a couple areas. But I watched a video and I saw somebody use this as a mask and I thought that was a really good idea. But then if you add color to it, you might be like, well, what am I going to do with this now? So let me just peel this up. We'll see if this looks like it's enough. Oh, listen to me. I'm listening to myself talk. I was wondering what I was hearing. So you have this little masked pattern. So that's one. And let me do one more. We'll do one with green anyway. So this is cinnamon cider. We'll set that on the side. Since I already have this green, let's do a green one too. Here's another piece. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm kind of just trying to find a spot here that's kind of dark. That looks good. Can't tell which side's the ink side. Hopefully it's this one. That's a little bit too high. So you don't have to get really specific with your taping. It kind of just depends on what you want to do. Tape that, and we'll go there. So Jack has a really, really deep lab bark. You know, instead of evergreen, because I've used that a lot, let's try jade. We'll go to something like brighter. He has a really deep bark. He actually, believe it or not, he's a Maryland dog. He was in Cecil County, which is north of me in Harford County. And he was in a shelter, and then the rescue people rescued him from the shelter, and then he lived with the foster family for 2 weeks. So we've had him, as of 10 o'clock today, it'll be 1 week we've had him. And he's really, really sweet. He definitely seems to be more lab to me than shepherd, just from what I can tell with him, because I did have my best dog in the whole wide world was a lab, and she lived to be 18 years old. I still miss her. She was my very best friend for many, 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 many years. But Christian is super happy to have a puppy. He's only been asking us since he could talk. So he's a really good dog. The only problem is I keep calling him she, because I've never, except when I was very young, had a boy dog. All the dogs I've had are girls, so I keep saying she, and it's not a girl. So there's another one. And again, you could go off. You don't necessarily have to have it so it's a perfect rectangle if you wanted to kind of go off and have like a little bit of blur over here. So let's do that for this one just to see what it looks like. We'll just kind of go off grid a little bit. I'm not going to add any more ink. I'll just kind of do it in a couple spots. Oops. A couple spots where we know. Only thing is you definitely don't want to be too rough, because again, this is only paper. So there we have like a little bit to the side there. Take this off without ripping it. Probably used that purple tape. So let me show you what these two look like. So again, that was just jade and cinnamon cider. So pretty cool. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put those on the side, because I want to do the third technique. That way we can hopefully assemble everything at the same time. So this was my final idea that I thought would be great, because you may end up with this piece and then you think to yourself, well, it has ink on it now. I don't really know what I want to do with it. So here was my third thing, and you can definitely see the green ink now versus the cinnamon cider, obviously, because it was brown and brown, Rachel. That makes total sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my Versamark. And I'm going to grab my coffee filter, and I think I'm going to go with white. Okay, my white embossing powder. So that way, depending on what you have, I don't know, sometimes we carry some embossing powders and sometimes we don't. I just want to make sure my heat tool is on. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on in the background so it heats up. The other thing that you might find handy are some reverse tweezers. That way you can hold this without burning your fingers, especially since it has such little spot. The other thing you could do is you could kind of hold it still in one spot. Stampin' Up! Unfortunately does not carry these, but you can get them pretty much at any big box store. So let's get this ready. Turn this. So I have white powder with some little paper pieces in there. I'm going to take my Versamark, and I'm just using my silicone mat. That way I don't make a mess everywhere. And I'm just going to press this onto my paper. Now, I may pick up some of that green, but that's okay. And you could also, if you wanted this just to look like maybe a wet trellis, you could just use clear and it will just make it shiny, but I just figured we'll try something different the first time. So let me just sprinkle this. And the other thing is you could even go so far as to not use the whole piece on one card. You could use part of it or half of it. Try to make sure I didn't miss any little spots down here. Okay, so I'm just gonna set this on the side for a moment so I can dump this. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab just the edge of this with my reverse tweezers, and I'm just going to heat it to melt the white powder. You do want to keep it moving, but once it gets shiny, it's set. And one thing you will notice is when you heat this, I'm just going to move this for a second. When you heat this, you can still see the brown through if you don't heat it all the way. So just make sure you keep moving, but take your time to make sure it's all melted. Okay, so there you go. I'm gonna, oops, you know what? I forgot that one little spot. Hold on, let me move down here for a second. And I could quite possibly, if I got any embossing powder on here, it might be melted, but that's okay. So here's what it looks like. And let me grab one of the other ones so you can see the difference. So I think this definitely would look neat too if you did it with clear. So there's the difference. So you have tan and white. So pretty simple. And again, you don't have to keep the whole thing. So you could do different parts of it. Let me just put these away because I always end up losing the tip for that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is just figure out what we're going to do to wrap up our cards. So we have these 3 different bases, and I noticed this one down here does have a paper line. So what I think I might do is just kind of rub a little bit of, because I got my tape a little too high. So I might either end up trimming this down a little bit. I probably end up trimming it just because it has such a corner there. So that's the only thing you would have to really be careful of if you did the whole sheet. Okay, so we have 3 backgrounds. Just gonna bend this a little bit so it kind of goes reverse. And again, it is still pretty delicate. You can see the other side is still mostly brown. Okay, so what we can do is add a little something. We can add something from the DSP to these because we have lots of different stuff. So we can cut this one out. Is that the one that cuts out? No, one of these cuts out. Maybe it's this. Oh, it's probably this image here. We'll cut this one out. So I do have some white cardstock. This is the shape that I used. So if you can remember what that's called, that's what it was. And just is failing me at the moment. So I'm going to grab this. Now also, I think I told you this before, but in the new stamp cases, specifically for photopolymer, it does have, they still have that it comes on this sheet, but what you can actually do is pull this off and then you can line it up so you know what images are in there. Now, I know some people do classes and they might not want to do it, but I think it's kind of handy because quite honestly, once I pull this off, I never end up putting it in the same spot as I did before. And I think it's kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just personal preference. I like it. So there's that one as well. Let's see, what else are we going to use? We'll use the pot. Okay, so there's that. I think that should be good for now. And then we're going to use this die, and we have our pot here. It even has one for this. So let's see what these look like. Let me just move these off to the side. And I actually got this, speaking of, Lisa I think is not currently taking orders, but she got a little magnetic dish, so hopefully I won't lose my dies anymore. So that was the thing that I ordered that I couldn't remember what it was. So I'm going to take my evening evergreen for my plants. Okay, see if we can fit a couple of these on. All right, so that will be one. I'm just going to put this on here. That way they'll be ready to go. I'll just crank it through. I might have to do one more than once just because of the pot. But actually, I have a different pot that I could also use. We have our soft succulent, which is nice. Put that right on there. And I think I'm going to go with Cajun Craze stamped off for one of these. Let's see. Let's see what full strength looks like first. And it does have built-in shading, which is kind of cool. So in case you might not be used to that and you're like, what in the world is up with that? It's supposed to look like that. I'll put that one on here. I'm going to run these through my Big Shot. And let me move this over for now. And hopefully, yep, it all fits on there. We'll do one pass. Can cut all of those out. So we have our leaves. And it does cut the middle piece, which is kind of nice. We have our pot and whatever this little climbing vine dude is, which is cute. They're all really, I really like them. They're very, I think they're really versatile. And I think I really obviously like a lot of plant stamps. That seems to be my preferred thing. You have lots of words in here as well. The other thing that's kind of neat is you have the little macrame holder. You have a little, like a palm like that you could use. So again, this one goes with this die. You have that one. You have something that kind of could outline your pot if you wanted to, depending on what you want to do. There's a couple different things. So you could even have like little hanging baskets. So lots of different stuff. I like them very much. I think they're really very fun. So let's take a peek and see what we have here. This I'm not going to use yet. And I had my other piece that was in my bag. Yep. So I ended up cutting this out, and it had kind of leaves hanging down from it, which I don't really know how that's going to look there, but you could also have a plain pot if you wanted to. But this one was part of, it was this little set here, and I felt bad throwing it out, so I ended up keeping that. So I used one whole part of that one. Okay, so let me grab, I think what I'm going to do, the only other thing I could have done with this, which would have been, and I missed a little spot here, so we may end up trimming this just a smidge, is putting this on with adhesive. Might be a little bit much where I won't adhere the whole thing. I'll probably just put it on the little dots just to keep it in place. So a nice, if you happen to have some sort of a spray adhesive that you could use, I've never used one, but I'm sure there's something that would be really cool as well. So let me grab a piece of just jade. I just want to see how this looks. Oops. Let's have some card bases here that failed. That one looked nice. I don't know about jade on jade. I think that would be a little bit much. But jade on a darker green would look nice. And I think I probably will trim this one down. And then we have one more with this. Let's do that one with crumb cake. So crumb cake, I think I have a base. Yep, crumb cake with white. Let's see what that looks like. We'll see how it all turns out. Lots of different things that we can try, but just kind of figuring what's going on. Oh, Crafter Solution is on Etsy, yes, but they are currently on vacation. Lisa's husband passed away, in case you might not be aware. So her and her son are on vacation right now. I think they're going to be opening up, I don't remember if it was June or July, Kathy. If you happen to know, feel free to share that on there. But she makes, her and her husband, John, actually was the one that originally started creating everything. And they make some really beautiful, very helpful products. Okay, this one I'm not sure if it's cut. It looks a little wide. Let me just take a peek. Yep, I thought so. So let me take this one down to 4 1/4. And while I'm here, I'm just going to score this at 5 1/2. And that one's already scored. I think we're good for the rest of it. Okay, so these were the little strips. When I was saying I was coloring, what I did was I just went over it with, but it was white. I went over it with my Stampin' Blends, and then I just cut little layers behind, which was a pretty cool idea. Okay, so let me fold this. And I gotta say, I'm very proud of all the 57 of you that showed up early, even though it was early. So thank you so much for doing that, for coming. I think I'm going to trim this down just a smidge. I'm going to go to 3 3/4 by 5. I usually try to take a little bit from the top and a little bit from the bottom, so it's kind of even. There we go. See how that's a little bit better. Do that. And you could always put more than one thing here. So don't feel afraid to do, just one thing. We could do a little, I know our stitched shapes are no longer orderable. So let's see what a stitched rectangle would look like. Yeah, I'm going to do that. And I think I'm going to do it just for something different. Just going to put bring some brown in. So I have a lot of scrap pieces. Let's see if that happens to be wide enough. Looks like just barely. So I'm going to run this little scrap piece through. Might just barely fit. So I'm going to put this one through. Just for something, a little bit of grounding. I did see another really amazing card. You guys would love this. So I can't remember who shared this, so you might have to search around, but someone used the stitched triangles across a card. I don't know if it was a slimline or a regular, but they had triangles upside down, but it was actually the scene they built and then they cut it out with triangles. That was really cool. So we could go this way. Actually could go this way with it and then put our little plant. But just to make this a little bit more, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to grab, so that was the longer or the wider stitch rectangles. That was the second smallest. And what was it? Oh, we even have, look, you have your mother-in-law's tongue here. I'm sure some of you have heard of that plant before. There's that one. I'm going to put, no, I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to use this one. And just for, it feels like it needs just a little something. So I'm going to just take this with crumb cake and just stamp a little something across it just for some visual interest. Not for necessarily it to match, but I'm going to go kind of diagonal. Just like that. Just to give it a little oomph. All right, so so let me put this, oops, out of the way. Okay, and then this, obviously, I'm glad I checked that. It would have been upside down. Oh, it would have been another left-hand card. Obviously, you're going to need a white panel on the inside of this. So let's see if we have that. We have this here and there. We are going to need some sort of a little sentiment. How about a little note with the biggest thanks? Let me see if I can. I'm going to do thank you on here. Kind of stick with our green theme. I'm going to go with Evening Evergreen, tie it into the base. Nice. And since I have my rectangles, I'm going to cut them again. Let's see if it'll fit on this one. It might be a little too slim. Yep. Yep, we'll do thank you. Okay, so that is the longer, thinner stitched rectangle. I'm just going to use that for this one. And you can either center it or you can kind of off-center it and then run it through twice. So basically, for example, what I mean is you have this piece, right? And it's maybe a little bit longer than you wanted it to be. So what you could do is you could line this up with your stitching and you will feel that it fits right in those grooves. Oops. And just like that, I'm actually just going to put a piece of tape so it holds it in place. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run just this piece through so it cuts the end there. So when I put my second thing on, I'm going to put it just like this, okay? And I'm going to run it through. So you can kind of make custom die sizes. So you can see what I mean. So when you pull that, this piece breaks off, and then you have a smaller die. So just takes a little practice. It can be a little bit wonky at first. Believe me, I did my share of goofed up ones. So we can do that here somewhere. And then I'm going to add a piece. I know I had another piece of white here. And one more time, a little note of thanks. We'll put this on the inside. And I'll go in a lighter green. Pretty good. You can even add a little plant stamp in there if you wanted to. Okay, move these. All right, so I'm going to do inside first just because it'll be easier. Oops. It's a nice part about the liquid glue. You can always adjust it. And then I'm going to add some dimension to the front of this. So this I will glue on fairly evenly. And the other one we will add a little bit of lift to. Okay, let's see. So what other thing I like to do is if you use a dimensional, you can actually give yourself a little insurance of holding it together. So I'm going to put a teeny bit of glue here to put it where I want it. Just kind of making sure that kind of fits together, you can see. So then what I'll do is take my dimensional and put one here. So it's kind of holding those two pieces together. And I think 2 is enough for that. This one we'll put down flat. Let me just take a look at this really quickly. Make sure I like what it looks like. We're going to put this up too. Why not? Oops. Okay, so this will be flat. This here, I'm not really pressing very hard yet because I want to make sure I line it up My U has got a little teeny smudge on it, but that's okay. Okay, so there I have it lined up. So there's that little note with the biggest thanks. So there is one. We have our other one, which we have this little piece here. This one was with the cinnamon cider. What do we have? I felt like we have this. I don't know if I really love that or not. I feel like it needs something. Maybe we could go. Let's try this. Let's just see what this looks like. I don't know what it is or isn't going to look like. That has ink on it, but probably not a lot. Let me go with cinnamon cider. I'm just going to ink this a little bit. See if I can kind of line it up on there. Kind of lined up slightly well. There you go. So we kind of made a fix that because the other side was just a little bit much. But what I'm going to do is, in case you missed, I missed just the very side here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my blender pen. I'll take a little bit of ink off the side here. Just kind of fill that in a little bit. And if I have to, I might trim it. Let's see. Where are my scissors? Here they are. Because it's sticking out just a little bit the way I did that. So I'm going to trim it down actually instead. A little surgery. There we go. That looks a little bit better. A little bit better than my doctoring the other way. So we have that and this. And let's see, what else do we have? How about this one? This one would make a really nice sympathy card. And I think because this one is so slim, this little stitch rectangle, it probably will fit. Just barely. You touched my heart. Let's do To a Dear Friend. And grab another little scrap here. Here we go. Let's do, I think I'm going to do soft suede. Just for something different. Let's see. No, it's not inked correctly. Hold on. Didn't seem like it was. It's weird because it's like the one side's not inking well. Can't be the, I think it's the pad. Must just be wonky. Let me try it a third time. Yeah, that's much better. All right, so I'm going to cut out. Don't break it, Rach. I'm going to cut out this little slim sentiment here. And that looks really good. And I'm just going to use, again, just a little piece of purple tape. So I'm just going to cut that one out. Funny because I really kind of had like a theme of what I wanted to do today, but I really wasn't sure what it was going to turn out like. But these are really, really cute. And if you wanted to, you could even add another layer of something. So for example, say if you wanted to bring like a little bit of something else in, you could even layer this behind it onto something else if you wanted to. So you could do like a little piece of jade. See if I have a little scrap piece. I'll just show you what it looks like. And if you don't like it, you don't have to add this one, but I have a piece. So I'm going to just run this through the die cut. This is a little bit big, or else I was going to say it's cut perfectly. Shockingly, I probably didn't intend to cut it for something. That just somehow made it that way. Okay. And put that there. That, we can do something with that. And then you have this. You can even use it up for a frame if you wanted to. But again, that was just the smallest and then the next smallest, the thin rectangles. And also one other thing to show you. This is really helpful if you have lots of extra pieces. So I used to keep them in these in with my dies, but what I typically do now is I'll just put them in the pouch with the dies. That way I have them if I were to need them for something else. So I kind of just, or little die cut pieces. This one just got a little munch, but put them in the back there. So that's another good use for those. So let's put this one together. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put this down here. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue. Just a little. I don't want it goopy or so it's kind of sliding all over the place. Like that. And then grab my scissors. I have some little dimensional pieces here. Oops. I'll just put these on the leaves of the plant. This one I'm going to put right here to hold that one together. It's a little bit too big. That's just a little too small. This is why I also like the little slim sides of those. They're really good for the little pieces. I just want a little bit more because I'm afraid it's going to get kind of floppy if I don't put this down the bottom. That one there. This one over here. Okay, and then I'm just going to glue this together. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue and center this as best I can. Looks pretty good. Okay, and let's just take a look, see if we think this needs anything else. The other thing you could do with this, if you wanted to, you could always kind of do like a tear. So that's another idea if you wanted to, but I'm going to make this bigger since we used one that was smaller. All the pouches and the other things, they are all from Stampin' Storage. So if you go over to my blog, I do have links there for most everything, but when I write up this blog post later, I'll make sure I put my link for that. And let's just take a peek and see what this looks like. Do we want it together? That kind of looks nice, just like that. I don't think this needs to be popped because not everything has to be popped up, but it's nice to have a few things popped up. Kind of make sure that's, for the most part, straight. Let's go down just a little. And I'm just going to pull the backs. So we have that little extra piece of insurance holding the top and bottom together. Just in case, especially if you are going to mail this card. Now, something that has layers and layers of dimensionals, you could possibly need an extra stamp. But if it has just one layer of dimensionals, you should be able to get it through with no problem. Okay, so there is that one. So that's equally nice. I don't want to say pretty because it's not really necessarily have to be a pretty card. So we have our very last one. So this one was the one with the lattice. So we could do one of two things because remember we were talking about I didn't emboss this. We could even, because I missed a spot, I messed up. We could either do one of two things. We could put it on just as it is, or we could, this could even go a sideways card. We could have it so some of it was like trimmed and sticking off this way. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to, just for a teeny bit more precision, I'm going to take my snips. I can't even tell you, my grandfather would love this card. He liked lattice on like everything. And let's see, so it's kind of like a little bit of a leaning. We'll go like this. I'm just going to cut this up the diagonal. He always wanted to add lattice or gingerbread to everything, whatever it was. So then I could use this other piece either for the inside or for something else. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to work on gluing this down. You could either use this. You could, if you prefer, use the fine tip glue pen. I know lots of people have different glues that you might feel more comfortable using. Definitely don't want to use adhesive tape runner on this because I feel like it would poke through and it would just be everywhere. Other thing you could do, and I've talked about this before, I don't think I've done it very recently, and I don't know where mine is, but anyway, sponges. If you take a sponge, and I have mine in a Rubbermaid container, but I don't know where it is up here right now. And what you do is you'll take a sponge and you'll put a pile of glue, and then you can dab onto the back, and then just keep your little sponge in a Rubbermaid container, like a small, you can even be from the dollar store, it doesn't have to be Rubbermaid. I just happen to have a Rubbermaid container. But what you can do is, you can put that on there, and I just want to hold this for a minute because it doesn't have a lot of glue. And it will keep your sponge from getting really hard. And then you can just glue over and over and over. So for a minute, what I'm going to do while I'm fixing the rest of this is I'm going to just put some blocks on here and just press. Let me get one more for this little piece here because I know I don't have a whole lot of glue. And we're going to add something to this one. So this is the only one I didn't cut something out for. And this one might look really cute, actually, with that little, what did I do with my little die? The trellis. Here it is. With the little trellis. Or the, not trellis, the little macrame. So let's do that. Let me see what else we can cut to make this simpler. We have all these little plants. Let's see if this goes with. That one doesn't go with that. We have this one. I feel like it needs to be something that's got a little bit more. So actually, I'm going to, while we're waiting for this, I'm going to fussy cut this. So I'm just going to, I'm not going to do it like super precise, but just get this out. This would kind of be more of, Stampin' Up! Should have probably come out with some sort of a spider plant. Because that, in my mind, that is what is always in this. I used to have one myself, as a matter of fact. I love spider plants. They're so much fun because it is really, I do have a green thumb. I will say I'm very blessed with a green thumb, but it is really difficult to kill a spider plant. They almost virtually can just suck the water from the air, which makes them really easy to take care of, and they're really visually interesting. All right, let me just grab the rest of this. And even though I know this has a little bit of background in it, it's okay. And speaking of another thing, I don't know how you, my friends in Ohio, are doing. That should be cute behind there. But it is really chilly here in Maryland. I don't know. We went back to fall again yesterday. It's just crazy. And I'm going to just make it simple. And I'm going to cut out one of these just to make it easy. So we're going to cut this out. But I'm also going to cut out a pot. I think I'm just going to stick with the regular old standard pot. So I'm just going to cut this one, and I'm just going to line this up while I'm here, make it a little bit simpler. And because we want some contrast, I'm going to do this in an espresso. You could also, you'll probably do it in like a suede, but I'm just going to, for the heck of it, we'll do it in espresso. So I'm going to run this through, save myself a little scrap, and we're running this through. And I think I can fit both of them, so we'll only have to wait for one piece. Oh, this one would have been smart for me to put some adhesive sheet on the back of. So would have been a smart idea. So if you're watching this on the replay and you're doing this after the fact, adhesive sheet on the back of that first. And here's my other pot. Let's see. You could always stamp this on there if you wanted a little bit of extra something. I don't know how wet that still is, and it's a little bit lopsided, but yeah, it's not really very wet. That's okay. It's going to be behind there. We're not even going to see it. Okay. Oops. Trying to make sure all these are in the right space. Okay, so we have that. So this just kind of has to be put together. This, I think, when I cut this, it must have just been a tiny bit crooked. So I'm going to just take, kind of just to even this off a little. There you go. So this, You know, now that I'm thinking about it, you definitely wouldn't have a terracotta pot like this. So I'm going to trim this up a little bit because this hanging for macrame sounds like disaster, right? You definitely need a light pot, a lightweight pot hanging. There we go. Okay, so let me put this in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use, where is it? It was over here. There it is. I'm going to use my fine tip glue pen and my silicone mat for this last one. This still has some adhesive from the Versamark, so I'm just going to flip it till I clean it. Okay, so I really just kind of need it on these points here. Doesn't have to be over the whole thing. And just if it makes any of you feel any better, I also am crafting in my pajamas this morning, so thank you for joining me so early. And for me being so early, I'm also in my jams. Okay, so there's that. Then we're going to put this behind back here. And I think I'm going to need to nip this off just a little bit. Trim it up just a little smoother. There you go. Because I don't want this to stick through just with this little thing here, so it kind of looks a little bit more authentic. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on with a dimensional just to hold it. I don't really know exactly what I want to do with it yet, but I figured since we have them out, we might as well use them because there's not very many left on this little tiny sheet. And I did have another sheet. Here they go. I just need one on the bottom. One more down here. All right, so we have that. And this. Oh, you know what? You know what would be great here? A little brad. You could put through there just for hanging purposes. I don't know what it will look like with the bottom though. And I know I do have brads, but I'm wondering, are they current brads? Because that's one thing you never know here. You know how I am. I always have things that are, let's say expired, but retired. That's what I wanted to use, retired. Yeah, so I don't know where any are at the moment, but a brad in there would be nice. You could put a little bit of a little string if you wanted to have it like it was hanging from something, but let's figure out what we want to do. So we'll go like that. Let's see, we're going to add one more. We just need something with a nice, we have to finish it with a nice sentiment. You Touch My Heart. We haven't used that one yet. That's a good one. And then hopefully, what I'll do with this is this one I'm going to put just because I haven't used it in a while. And I'm really sad to say that I don't know, nobody listened. We still don't have the stitched layering shapes back. So I'm just going to do a oval just to bring a little bit of like a smoothness to this. So I'm going to cut this out with the oval. And I'm going to do it in, I'm going to go with Garden Green just to lighten it up a little bit. Let's see. Okay, that looks good. And okay, we'll go with that. Could always add the scallop, but I don't know. I don't know if it's just me. I'm not much on the scallop layers. I guess it's just not my style. I definitely like the stitching more. So if you still have the stitch shapes, if you were fortunate enough to purchase them before they were retired, use one of those. Because I bet it would look great. Oh, I think my tape is hitting the end of its lifespan. Once it starts ripping the paper, that's when you know. All right, so there's that. That would probably also look equally as nice with a layered, a green layered, like the next size up oval behind it. Maybe with the scallop, maybe it would look nice. I'm just being a scallop snob. And I am going to put this on dimensionals too, because I think it needs it. And before I do, I'm going to do one more thing just to kind of bring it in. I'm going to, what do? Let's go with cinnamon cider. I'm just going to take my marker. I have very slippery fingers. And I'm just going to go around the edge of the oval with my marker, just to kind of give it a little bit of distinguishment from the crumb cake and the white. Okay, this over here. Yeah, that looks nice, just like that. So I'm just going to peel these off, and I will show you all 3 cards. What time is it? Wow, look at that. I even made 3 unique cards before 9 o'clock. I can't even believe it. I thought for sure it'd be after 9. That's impressive for me. Goes to show you I haven't made cards in a while. I must have really, really, really wanted to make these cards. I did, of course. I always really want to make cards. Just trying to make sure, because this is just a little bit. You know what I need to do before I put this down? I need to put just a little bit, and I'm going to use, because I have it here, I'm going to use this liquid glue. Just going to put a little bit of liquid glue up the center to hold that back portion in place, because basically it's just this little thing is holding it in there. I didn't put any other adhesive to the back, so I put just a little bit of liquid glue behind this one, and it will dry clear. So let's see, that's where I wanted it. That looks pretty good. I think that looks nice, just like that. Let me just move this out of the way, give that a final. I don't like to press the ink sometimes when it's wet. I'm afraid it's gonna move on me. Okay, so there you have it. I'm going to need to clean this off, so I'm going to put that to the side while I put this away. Here's our other little piece. So if you wanted to, you can even add like a little piece to the inside. Maybe you could add a little piece to the inside, and then, or if you were going to use this for something again, so for example here, you could use like your shape or whatever it may be. Say if it was like this, just work with me here, and it could cover up this little part so you could still use it, but I would probably use this for something else. The other thing, let me just show you this really quickly before we say goodbye. So you see this, and then I'll show you the cards again. This, I'm assuming, I don't know, but now that I looked at it, they have this piece here. So I must not have dried this. That must be what it was. I must not have heated this one section because it was coming off. But basically what they did is they nipped this away. You can see it's just those pieces. I know that's not to size, so you can't really tell. But what you could do, say if we didn't like this, is we could just nip this off, and then you would have like a different piece of your lattice. So that's another thing you can do with it. Lots of great examples here. Even this one, here's another example. So instead of using the whole macrame on this one, see this piece here, they cut off those outside edges. So hopefully you can see that. I'll show you it a little bit closer. So this is a full, like this one, right? And then this one here, they cut off those outside edges, so you could have a slimmer one, and then put your little like a more, not a tropical, but like a palm plant in. This here they used to make like a plant stand, and they set it in, which is this little dude right here. And then they have this die cut here, so it'd be like this sitting in here. So it looks like it's a plant stand, which is kind of neat. So there's lots and lots of uses for anything. We have dies for this one. This is also a die here. So you have the little, so you can cut out the side. And one other thing that it just came to me is if you were making a card that had a really big smile, this looks like a big open, a happy laugh smile, like your mouth is open smiling. So I always look at the dies to see like other funny things. You can make like a head, like a big mouth and the ears and the eyes, a face, I don't know. Just other things I think of while I'm sitting here crafting. So let me just move these so you guys can see those. Hopefully you enjoyed this today. So we just did masking, but basically with those little lattice pieces instead. So that was another fun way to use them. If you have another fun way to use them besides that, make sure you let me know, leave a comment. I do have a lot of stuff that I need to clear out, and now that I am home from work for the summer, I will be trying to clear out some of my things that are retired that I'm not really necessarily using anymore, or just to make room for other stuff. So make sure you leave a comment here. We don't have to do the month currently. I kind of strayed from that a little bit because I was having some difficulty pulling names because of the way people were entering it, which is no big deal. Don't worry about that. So instead of that, just leave me a comment either here, or if you're watching this on YouTube for the replay, leave me a comment about your first or your favorite pet, or maybe if you didn't have a pet, the reason that your parents told you you couldn't have a pet. Because I know plenty of people that didn't have pets when they were growing up because their parents just didn't want them to have pets. So I could totally understand that as well. But I'm actually going to save this piece and keep it in with my not my dies, with my paper, my DSP pack that I have here. So essentially the other thing is, once I took these off, I stuck them on here. So I have my dies on the sheet, and then I have my stamps in here. I don't really necessarily use these. This one is much thinner, so I typically don't keep these at all, but you could use the thicker piece if you were going to make a window card. It's the perfect layer of acetate for a window card. Only thing you could do is just make sure you wipe it off before you use it, just like with a soft cloth, if there was any adhesive spot. But once the shaker stuff is in, nobody's really going to notice anyway. So I usually keep those just for that purpose. I haven't had to order as much window sheet. So thank you guys so very much for joining me. If you do need to get anything currently ordering, this is the host code that is valid right now. If you would like to shop for something, you can head to my online store, rachthestamper.stampinup.net. My picture usually will be in the upper left-hand corner if you're shopping with me. If you have any questions, you can always send me an email at rachthestamper@gmail.com. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I'm not going to be able to be live tomorrow because my plan is to take Christian out to see my dad in Western Maryland. So I won't be live tomorrow, but I'm hoping maybe we'll have to see Tuesday or Wednesday evening. We're not coming back until Tuesday, so we'll have to see. Maybe at some point Wednesday, depends on what the weather is, because if it's really nice, I'm sure he's going to want to swim. But thank you guys so much for joining me. Again, I do try to give at least a little bit notice of if I know when I'm going to go live, which is why I posted this last night to my Facebook page. So if you are watching this on YouTube and you don't follow me on Facebook, or vice versa, I would love to see you join me there. Thank you guys very much. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you real soon.